Twitter immediately took down all of my footage. I had an account with about 120,000 followers, and it was another reiteration of how much power big tech has. My name is Savanah Hernandez, and this is my story. I'm an independent journalist, and I'm a truth seeker. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. My mother is from the island of Guam, and my father was born and raised in California. My great-grandparents immigrated from Mexico into America looking for a better life. We were living in California at the time. I was an only child for 7 years. And then they had my sister 7 years later, and then my little brother 10 years later, so a big age gap with my two siblings. I like to say that I'm from everywhere because I was born in Corpus Christi, I lived in California, I lived in New Mexico, and now I'm back in Texas. I would definitely say America's my home. I think that there is a little bit of a misconception. Hispanic families are very traditional. Hispanics are not traditionally raised to victimize themselves. They're trained to work extremely hard. I have the work ethic that I do because I watched my father tirelessly wake up every single morning and, stay out late at night to make sure that our family was provided for. So in America, when we tell children that they cannot have opportunity because of their skin tone, because they're a victim, all we're doing is stopping and hindering the next generation of beautiful, amazing, creative, and talented Americans from reaching their full potential. We have a serious problem in society today with our country telling people, you can't do this because you're brown, you can't do this because you're black, you can't do this because you're a woman. I couldn't be more grateful to be a brown woman in America because this country has awarded me so many opportunities. If it was not for this country, I would not be able to do what I am doing today. I have freedom of speech. I have freedom to achieve every single dream that I've ever wanted. So my initial passion for journalism, if you will, started with writing. My mom, also a big proponent of my writing, she would always tell me I was a great storyteller. It was something that I needed to pursue. So ever since I was a little girl, I was always writing stories. Granted, I never really cared about politics. It was always of interest to me in college specifically because people were getting so worked up. I was in school during 2016 when Donald Trump was just getting into office, and I watched everyone have a complete meltdown when he became president, and it sparked my interest because I wanted to know why they were so upset. So that was my initial introduction into politics, but it was such a big issue that I never knew how to tackle it. It wasn't until I moved to Austin that's when I really became politically awakened because I got to watch the reality of what Democratic policies did to a once beautiful city. So after I had graduated, I was looking for a job, and then I get a call from InfoWars and Alex Jones. Had no idea who he was at the time. They asked me if I wanted to be a production assistant. I said yes, and I ended up working for him for 2.5 years. And although I didn't agree with everything that he said, I was able to disagree with him on his own show. He instilled in me the passion to tell the truth no matter how hard it gets, no matter how hard you're pressed. What I've always done with every single news story is look at both sides immediately to try to figure out the truth behind the actual story. That's another thing that's greatly lacking in journalism, is showing all angles and all sides. There's so many different aspects to political issues that the mainstream media doesn't even show us. They always try to make it so black and white. They're trying to push a specific narrative. So it takes a very strong person in this industry to be able to push back and say, you know what, let's look at this from a different angle. Maybe we don't understand the full story, or maybe we need to understand this from a different perspective. The average journalist doesn't do that nowadays, and it's very sad, and that's why our country is so divided, because we don't understand the full capacity of every story. Twitter was my biggest platform, and I had an account with about 120,000 followers. So Donald Trump had retweeted a clip of mine. I went to the Million MAGA March in Washington, D.C. I did a pan of the crowd singing the national anthem, beautiful moment, and it went a little bit too viral. That was about 2 months before they deleted Donald Trump off of Twitter as well, so they were just targeting accounts that he was retweeting. Unfortunately, I was one of those, and it was another reiteration of how how much power big tech has in this country, because keep in mind, people do formulate opinions and they do cast their votes based off of what they're reading on these social media platforms. So when you silence one side, or if you even silence a journalist who's trying to show people and inform people about the realities of our country, it's horrifying for anybody to see. So I've watched with my own two eyes how easy it is to manipulate people and use emotion to spur them into action. And I've watched our entire country be destroyed over it. I was reporting primarily on Austin Antifa at that time, and they had figured out who I was, so they would target me. They mobbed me at one point. They robbed me of my phone and they tried to beat me up. It's happened to me. It's happened to my friends. But what we all have in common is that we care more about the truth than being silenced by bullies on the street who don't want their criminal activities being exposed. One of the reasons why, as a Hispanic woman, I did want to go to the border was because we're constantly fed this narrative that it's women and children that are fleeing to America to find a better life. But the realities of what's happening at the border, women are being raped. A huge percentage of the women that are making that trek to get into America are getting raped. Children are getting raped. The drugs that are coming across the border, we have crime rates surging. We have the fentanyl crisis just exploding throughout our entire country and killing Americans. That's the reality of illegal immigration. It's not, oh, we're going to open it up to everyone. Everyone's going to have a great time. It's, we're killing more Americans. We're killing more people by allowing the borders to be this open. I actually had a video come out of little kids who were drugged by human smugglers. They're drugging these little kids so that way they stay quiet as they're crossing the border. But the darker side to that is that Border Patrol has said that they've seen these same children multiple times because the cartel will use children to try to make people look like a family unit to get them across the border and get them into our country. So the cartels are the ones that are benefiting the most from open borders, not women and children. I do know that there are people who are going through hardships and they are trying to get into this country for a better life. But to anyone who advocates for open borders, I would tell them, come with me to the border for a week and I'll show you the realities of open borders. So I started a podcast account because I still am passionate about journalism and showing what's going on in America and elevating the voices of my fellow Americans. That podcast account got deleted because I found the one athlete that was willing to speak out against Leah Thomas dominating all of the women at the NCAA swimming championship. That went too viral. Twitter immediately took down all of my footage. And more importantly, the athlete that was brave enough to speak out and say, you know what, this is how my fellow athletes are feeling. So it wasn't me that Twitter silenced at that point. It was that young girl, and it was her voice. It was her message. The reason why censorship is so horrible for everybody involved is because we're taking away the access for the person in the middle who just wants to figure out what's going on. We're only allowing them to see one specific narrative as opposed to letting them see the whole picture and then letting them formulate their own opinion. I'm anti-censorship for everybody, whether you're a rabid liberal. If I think that you're spewing the most horrific lies I've ever heard in my life, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that you are still able to say that, because that's what freedom of speech is. My message to any American who is genuinely looking for the truth about what's going on is to do your own research. Think for yourself. Stop allowing the mainstream to think for you. Stop allowing the government or your friends or, your political leaning to decide for you how you should think and feel. Go put in the hard work into finding out the truth, because it is hard work, but it's very important work that every single American needs to be doing on their own. Thank you guys so much for watching. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.